Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights. And I really wanna know if will ever figure out where the road goes. Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs. You can say I lost my mind, I will keep on holding my head high, even if the sky is falling down. Jumping from cliffs so high, trusting our wings to fly. Sometimes we're crashing down, but we get up and start from the ground. And I really wanna know if will ever figure out where the road goes. Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs. You can say I lost my mind, I will keep on holding my head high, even if the sky is falling down. Even if the sky is falling down, yeah. The sky is falling down. Even if the sky is falling down, even if the sky is falling down, yeah. The sky is falling down.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Icky Timey here. It is good to be among the living back in California. And today we're going to be hanging out with a good friend of mine, good friend of yours, our good friend, not Pastor Damon, who was with us last week, but today I'm going to be hanging out with Pastor Pono. Yes, me and Pono are going to be talking about ministry and life. That's what he and I look like sometimes. We're going to be talking about being yourself in the world and just getting involved with your life around you, in your job, with your family. For us, it's ministry. For some of you out there, it might be ministry. And as you're doing that, to how to do that well in your own skin. So you're going to want to hang in there with us. Now, for those of you who may be like, hey, wait a minute, weren't you supposed to have Dr. Ricardo Graham? Yes, I was. He's going to be on next week. So if you tune in next week, I'm going to be hanging out with Dr. Ricardo Graham, who is currently the president of the Pacific Union Conference. We're going to be talking about leadership and life and his upcoming retirement and all the cool things that he's learned in all of his years doing ministry. So you're going to want to catch that. But that's next week. This week, I'm hanging out with Pastor Pono. And before Big P and I talk, I also want to drop this. Starting Sunday, May 16th, we're going to go into our week of prayer, Thrive. The Living Room Sessions is kicking off. We've got about 25 churches who are collaborating with us. They're going to be doing some music and special music. We're going to have stories being shared about mental health. And then Dr. Myron Edmonds is going to be our speaker. We're going to have the LA County Department of Mental Health doing presentations on mental health. For those of you who may not already be dealing with this, or no, 1 in every 4 human beings here in the United States struggles with mental health. So whether you know that or not, whether you've noticed it, whether you are connected to someone that you are aware of or not, someone is struggling near you with mental health. So we're going to rock this out. We're going to lean into it, and we're going to do a great work starting the 16th. Then on Sunday the 23rd, we're going to be doing a training session for anybody and everybody who wants to get trained on mental health and how to deal with it. If you need more information, check out right here this URL, www.scc.adventist.org/Thrive 2021. And on there will be all the information, presenters, speaker, topics, the whole deal. The churches that are collaborating with us, it's all there. So make sure you catch it. And we're going to keep referring to it today. We're going to be posting it up onto our social media stuff all week long so that you can jump in with us. All right. Now, Big P, what's going on, Pone?
What's up, bro? What's up?
We were just talking before how we can't throw any bars down, but I almost wanted you to just like drop some freestyle rapping right now, son.
Bro, every single time that pre-mix starts up on the playlist, I'm like wanting to say something, but I didn't know words come out at all.
I know, me too. I'm always like, I can't rap.
Bro, I'm always like, yeah, and that's it. That's all that happens.
That counts, dude. That counts.
It does. Bro, it does.
What's your drink today, man?
Bro, I have in my hands. I just had lunch over at Seabirds right next to us at the church.
Yes.
And it is a phenomenal vegan spot, and they have this blueberry mint lemonade. That when you sit down, it's all you can drink. Like you can keep getting refills all throughout, and when you're ready to go, like they actually give you a to-go cup.
Ooh.
Yeah, bro. So I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I need a drink. Oh, I have one. Yeah, blueberry mint lemonade, man. That place is dope, bro. Seabirds is by far one of my favorite vegan spots in Long Beach.
Blueberry mint lemonade. So it's a lemonade with like a blueberry
like a syrup,
flavoring syrup,
but it's
with
all
some fresh mint.
It tastes natural. That's the thing.
Wow.
It tastes really natural. So it seems like it's not just like a bunch of syrup that they just buy from the store. It's like actually like syrup that they make and stuff, bro.
Any caffeine in it?
No, none. I needed some today, but at the same time, like, I'm trying to make sure that I don't overdo the caffeine.
Don't
right
go
now, bro.
don't go over the top.
No. I'm trying not to. It's so
You
easy to-
you might need a little of that in a couple months, in a couple weeks, in a few weeks, I should say.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. What is it? 6 weeks or 7 weeks now? Almost 8.
Countdown.
Yeah, bro, it's coming. It's coming.
Are you ready?
It's coming. I am not. No, if I said I was, then I'd be lying to all of the people in the world right now. And yeah,
If you're
a child-
catching this, you're watching along, or you're watching this and recording, and you didn't know it, Pono, my guy, is having a girl. He's having a daughter. Yeah, Pono. He's not actually having it. He's not actually
no,
having it.
I'm not. Yeah,
No,
no way, man. You know what's really funny about that is my wife. So the first time I made the announcement to the church, I get your sleep now, bro. 8 weeks.
Get your sleep now. That's right.
My wife has been correcting me 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So
She's
it's funny
having
because-
it. Katie's that one right there.
Yeah,
She's
man.
having it.
So I made the announcement to the church, and I said, "Hey, we're having a baby," and her aunt texted her, "We are having a baby."
Right.
Is that really?
Is that really a thing?
I gotta check myself sometimes, bro. Yeah, my wife is taking all the work, bro.
Oh man. Yeah, we gotta do the before and afters of Pono.
Kevin, that's why I shaved my head, man. This is probably gonna be the thing that goes all over the place, bro.
Tell you about it, man.
Bro, no joke, man.
You know what? Kevin, you need to be on here with us. Kevin knows this conversation
should be here,
very
bro.
well.
Yep.
Yes. And we also should be hearing from Katie's side of the story, Pono.
Oh, guarantee, bro. Guarantee. She actually threatened, or I don't know, is that the right word? She actually threatened to come online with us today. She was like, I'm gonna stop by the church. I was like, I'm being interviewed. She's like, I'm just playing. I was like, actually, yeah, come through. But no,
Katie, anything that sounds out of place, you go ahead and drop it in the comment. I will throw it up immediately, girl. We're not playing around. Immediately. If Pono is telling a lie or a half truth or a quarter truth or an eighth truth, we're going to put it on, sister. Oh, hey, listen. This is what I'm drinking because my guy, Jeff, just walked in with it. Yeah, shout out to my dude. Jeff Mills is like my hero, man. When I grow up, I'm going to be him, dude. I'm going to be a white man who can do all things.
Did Greg give you his espresso today, bro?
Jeff did. Yes, he did. Yeah, he did.
Oh, gosh,
He came through with a flat. Jeff just brought this beautiful mix in. Man, this guy, he's like the Holy Spirit. No disrespect. He's kind of like the Holy Spirit who just knows when you need something and just pulls up in here and hooks it up, man.
That's Jeff.
And-
For real.
Anything good in my office in here? Jeff Mills.
Bro, for real, man.
Oh, my guy Kevin. My children will be screaming and climbing all over me. I don't need to be interviewed. I need to be prayed for. You better preach. Oh, Kevin. Oh.
And on that note, we're gonna take a break to go ahead and pray for Kevin real quick.
Yeah. We're,
Take a moment of silence.
Be with Kevin.
Lay some hands.
Lay some hands on this brother. Lay some hands back, brother. Let me tell you. For those of you with children, y'all know. You know what's up. I'm laying hands on my wife right now. She's at home with them. Woo, mercy.
Same.
Oh, man. So, yeah, that drink sounds pretty good, Pono. We want to talk about, like, being ourselves, like living in our own skin, and what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
Because to be honest, the pastors, we kind of put on an armor or a shroud or a mask because we have to be a certain way with our members. I don't know if it's because of fear or just because of that's the way we're educated to deal with it, but having some sense of distance or boundary or borders with our members. And in one sense, that's kind of good. In another sense, it creates a alter ego, or it creates an individual who we're not. And I think
Yeah.
there's a
Yep. Yep.
danger
Yep.
in that, bro.
Yep.
What do you think?
Definitely. Yeah, man. You know, it's this one thing, this challenge between like revealing so much of yourself and also kind of holding back some of the things, because sometimes when you're building a relationship with the church or in any kind of community. I mean, when you're starting to date someone, you're not giving every bit of you right off the bat, right? And so you have to kind of wrestle with this idea of like, okay, I'm going to show you parts of me, but I'm also going to show you, I'm not going to show you all of me. And so
Yeah.
it's this challenge, man, because and one of the reasons why it's a challenge is because of the wrestling of the identity as well. Like I'm trying to figure out what how I relate to the world, to church, to
Yeah.
ministry, to God. And so I am myself wrestling with this stuff. And so if I'm showing you all of the things that I'm wrestling with as well, it might actually scare some of our members as well, or not just our members, but it might
Right.
scare a lot of other people.
It might scare humans in general. By the way, hi, Lilia. Welcome on. Welcome on. You get the ding
Hello.
for jumping in here with us.
Yeah.
Good to have you in this conversation. Girl, happy Tuesday to you. And if you have any comments, feel free to share them. We'll make sure we share them with the world, as well as everybody. If you are just jumping in here right now, or if you're catching this on the recording, welcome on. Pastor Pono and I are talking about what it means to be real or be ourselves in life, in ministry, in the world that we live in. Yeah. Great point, Pono, what you're saying about that. And I feel like, to be honest, we have also built a culture where the pastor is seen as somebody who is spiritually more evolved,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
maybe
definitely, bro.
more prestigious. Maybe that has deep roots in the beginning of our church fathers and Catholicism.
Yeah.
But we have this sense that a minister is transcendent. So it's hard for us to admit our humanness,
To be
because,
human
because people are like, wait,
yeah.
what? Aren't you
Yeah.
a pastor?
Yeah. The energy limitations, right? You know, not being able to have energy for all people. You not being able to interact and engage with every single person that comes through the doors.
Right.
And there are times, like, even when I'm like in the mode of like handling something for production at the church, or for this and that, and somebody's trying to get my attention, and I'm like, I can't talk to you. That's my favorite part, is actually being able to sit with everybody on doing all of that stuff. But the energy level is so low that you don't actually have that for everyone. And at the same time, like, it's tough, you know what I mean? So I totally get that idea of like, hey, we are this sort of spiritual highness, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, no, we were actually like, if you look at pastors, the pastoral, the idea of pastor came from shepherd. And if you think about shepherds were not actually seen as high and mighty people in their communities.
quite lowly, actually. It's a very
right, exactly.
very non-prestigious type of position. I think Kevin hit it on the head as well. Kevin nailed it on the head when he says that we've put pastors in that title on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And
bro.
so, we're constantly having to live to this idea of being something. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, Pono, but somebody finding out you're a pastor and all of a sudden starts apologizing for their bad language, or like,
it's just the energy.
Like all of a sudden who they really were is no longer acceptable because of your position or your role, whereas prior to that.
Well, I remember one of my good friends over. He's an actor, but he's also a pastor too, and he was auditioning, and I think he was even part of a cast by that point, and he had gotten to know the cast really well. They were really cool. Everybody was jamming, and then they found out that he was a pastor, and they were like, oh, like they kind of stiffened up a bit, and so it's like, oh man, like that is so hard for me to hear, because he was like trying to correct that. No, like that's not how we're gonna engage, man. That's not how we're gonna do it, because who you are is not somebody that I am judging at all. Like, who you are is me being with you. This space right here is just us engaging with each other in our likeness, in our likelihood. You know what I mean? We're just here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I remember hearing that and seeing that, like, yeah, that's been my case all the time. Like, when growing up, all of my friends, they did everything. You know what I mean? And so one of my some of my best friends were the ones who never challenged me to and pushed me and pressured me to do the things that they did. They were just there, and that's why they're my best friends till today. Like, we can
Mm.
be each other throughout all of this. We didn't need to interact, um, and bond over a beer or a drink. You know what I mean?
Right.
We could
Right.
engage because we were just wanting to know each other. We just wanted to hang with each other, and that's it. And so I really appreciated that, because that growing up in Hawaii, like, everybody in, like, they all, bonded over Heinekens. You know what I mean? Like, they
Mm-hmm.
all bonded over doing all of this stuff. And so while all these guys did it, they never pressured me to do it. And I knew that that's why I want to be a pastor, is because I want to showcase that, hey, God cannot also be in the midst of all of this and
Mm.
still be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I'm with you completely on that, bro.
So let's back it up a little bit here and broaden out our scope. Um, yeah, amen to good friends, man. You're
Yes, bro.
truth, Kev, truth, man.
My
Apart
boys are
from our
my boys are the
titles,
best, bro.
yeah. So let's just pull it back a little bit, because this is our situation as pastors. But I think people in general have a difficult time being themselves in the world. You know, this may contribute to why certain individuals are so apt to try to have a particular physique,
Yeah.
because they've got to attract somebody, and maybe they feel like their personality or who they are just
Yep, yep.
isn't quite enough, right? Or who they are for some reason just isn't quite enough to attract someone. So being ourself is just a really important piece of the puzzle, or the whole thing
Yeah.
here. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that. How do we be ourselves? Where does that even start, man?
Man,
What do you
that's a
think?
good question.
Oh,
Bro, like, that's such a broad question that the only thing I can think of is to produce the next question, which is, like, how do we find ourselves first? Like, I
yeah,
think that's the first thing that I had to figure out was what's my own identity. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And that was tough in growing up in Hawaii. Um, I've been kind of engaging with the idea of, like, the colonization leading up to modern Hawaii and all that kind of stuff too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the thing about it is, like, Hawaii is today an urban community that came from um, that colonizer kind of mentality, which came from the missionaries. Like, the majority of today's culture is actually shaped like, by missionaries who came in. The whole language, like the written version of Hawaiian language,
Mm-hmm.
is based off of the missionaries coming in and translating, or creating the language so that they could translate the Bible into Hawaiian. Um,
Right.
so so a lot of our language actually today, even, and language shapes the brain. So a lot of the language shaped kind of the modern way of identity. And so I say this because today Hawaiians actually have a very dualism kind of identity. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's something I had to wrestle with growing up, man, was the difference between church and the difference between my Hawaiian identity, like, the difference between church and the difference between my low income, single mom identity. You know what I mean? And where
Right.
all of this came from. And so that kind of wrestling, I mean, it's tough. That kind of living in the wilderness, trying to figure it out, was tough. And so producing it for the gospel was even harder, because
Ha.
not only am I trying to figure out myself. Now, when people are asking me, hey, can you preach? And I was like, yeah, but I don't know how, because apparently I'm supposed to show myself. I'm supposed to be able to have a good voice. I'm supposed to be able to do all of
Mm-hmm.
these different things. But I didn't realize that actually, like, being able to being able to find your identity and being able to know your identity was a big part of being able to preach, man. And so yeah, that was the hardest part in life, was trying to figure out exactly what it meant to know who you are. And so for
Yeah.
me, my eventually I started to realize, I think in college we did this paper on who we were. Like we did like a the autobiography, and like as a paper, and it was like a 25-30 page paper that I had to write, and so I had to dive deep into my own soul to figure that out. And so what I did was I was like, okay, what is it about me that I can talk about? What is my identity, and how can I portray this in a 30-page paper, one that's actually a single sort of narrative versus going all over the place, because when you talk about
Mm-hmm.
people like, oh, you was born on this day, right?
Yeah.
And so instead of having all of that information, like, what could I talk about? And I remember talking about my name, actually. And so I was talking about how, and the premise of my paper was how my name shaped the way that I engaged with the world all throughout my life. And so and so a lot of people don't know what my name is. Bronson. And then my
Bronson.
middle name is William. Then my first name is Bronson. My middle name is William. And then my Hawaiian name is not just Pono. It's actually Kahana Pono Akealoha. And then the last name Lopez. So my name, like, if you
You
look
got
at
a lot going on there, by the way.
bro,
There's
that's what I'm saying.
talk about identity. Just saying your name says a lot here about
Wow.
identity.
That's what I'm saying, Ick. That's what I'm saying, bro. I figured out in that moment, like, oh, actually, this is kind of a really good example of what a Hawaiian, what a native person, what an indigenous person really goes through when it comes to identity crisis. You know what I mean? Like, Bronson, William, two names in there that, like, where did that come from? I mean,
William.
Bronson came because my mom really loved Charles Bronson, like,
Right.
growing up. You know what I
I
mean?
knew it. I
Like,
knew
she had
it.
an
I'm gonna say
infatuation
it.
for the man.
Yeah.
And so because for her, Charles Bronson was a very strong
He was
male
a very
figure.
strong. Yes, right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Many people did. Yeah, that's how they saw him.
Exactly. So she basically wanted to project that onto me. Like, I want you to be a strong male figure. You know what I mean? William came from my grandpa. My grandpa's name was William. He died when my mom was in her senior year in high school.
Wow.
And made such an impact on her that she wanted that. And then Kahana Puna Akealoha, that's a whole story in of itself.
Yeah. Because that's actually a phrase, isn't it?
It's a phrase, yeah. So that's the traditional Hawaiian way of naming kids. It's like, you don't just name them one single word. You actually name them an entire phrase, an entire story. Like, you gift the kid a story. And some have actually, like, it can be both negative and positive, actually, because some people have been named a name that's like about their mom, like, going and sleeping with all these other men. Like,
Oh man,
I've actually heard
that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
was named that. You know what I mean? And so you kind of have this projection onto these kids. I mean, but basically the whole point of it was to communicate, like, there is a story that comes from a person, like, and when we gift this to you, we're kind of gifting you the spirit of that story. And so Kahana Puna Akealoha, like, that was a gift to me. Like, here's your story. Here's a story for you. Or at least, at the very least, the spirit of your story. And I remember that, like, so I was processing all of that, and I was like, dude, this is good. Like, this is really powerful stuff.
You didn't even get to Lopez. Where's Lopez come from?
So exactly.
Lopez.
So everybody's like, Lopez.
You related to Jen?
that bro. So because of that, my nickname in high school was Pilo.
Pilo. I love it.
Bro. Hey,
Oh.
it's a Pilo.
If you're watching along, just drop in what your high school nickname was. If you just catch this on the recording, drop it in the comments. Let us know, what was your high school nickname? Pono's was Pilo from around the block.
So Kahana Puna Akealoha, that phrase means the good work of love.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, bro. Yeah,
So
the
good.
good work of love. So the Pono, I don't know if you knew this, but the word Pono means good. Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so I grew up having sort of that idea of like,
It's awesome.
Pono, like you got to be good. You're going to be a good person. The one phrase that my dad kept on going over and over, Skippy. I love that, dude.
I love it, Skippy. Yes. Jeff gets a bell for that.
Bro, for real, dude. Yeah, you got to give him a coffee for that one.
I'm going to name him Q from now on.
So the phrase that my dad kept, kind of instilled in me from like really early on was this idea of, he said, be good and do good in whatever you choose to do. Lils, hey, they're Lils, bro. And be good and do good in whatever you choose to do, bro. Like that's what he kept telling me over and over and over. And I remember kind of soaking that in over time. Like it really did stick. And I thought to myself, like, yeah, actually, this is the truth right here. Like this is what life is for me, is to be good and do good in everything that you choose to do. Which meant that I could choose to do anything, but I could be anything. I could work hard to become something, but if I do it, then I need to make sure that goodness, like I'm doing it for good. I'm doing it for the good,
Wow.
Yeah.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, man. That's beautiful.
I hope so.
We'll check with we'll check with Katie. Katie, you haven't commented in a while, so I'm taking Pono's being honest. You let us know, girl. Keep us on track.
She might be doing yoga by now, bro.
She might be like, I'm too angry to comment on this. Now, Lopez, is that a name that you carried from your dad or your mom?
Lopez, yeah, dad. So my dad is Hawaiian, Irish, like he has all the whites, so Irish, Scottish, German.
He's all the whites, got all that. Check.
So I think Filipino is next, but I think those are the ones. So Hawaiian, all the whites, and then Filipino. So I think my dad was like a quarter Filipino, actually.
Hence Lopez.
Hence Lopez, yeah.
I got it. So it's not a Hispanic
influence.
Background. It's Filipino.
Yeah, it's the colonizer of Philippines.
Got it. So good. Wow. So you know what's interesting about that, Pono? I think that there are a lot of people who can relate, because our stories today are more amalgamated than ever, right?
Yes.
It's not as if any of us grows up in a homogenous group area all our lives. A few years back, we all didn't travel as much. So like when your uncle came back and he was like, hey, I just came from Scotland, everyone was like, Scotland, whoa, because you knew you were never leaving your town, or you might go a state over, but you'd never be like on that long. But today we're global, which means people are moving in and out from different states and different places, and we're marrying and we're living in different places. And so our stories have a new kind of identity. My kids are born of my wife and myself, born of my wife from her, but I was a part of the process, right? So she is Filipino. She grew up in Pomona all of her life and was born in Canada, Vancouver. So she's basically North American is who she is, really. Whereas I was born in Tonga and grew up in Southern California all of my life. So our kids are Filipino and Tongan, but really American, North American. And so their story is never going to be completely Filipino, completely Tongan, completely Canadian, completely American. It's always going to be some kind of version of that.
Yep.
So finding a clear-cut identity of who I am or where I'm from is not as easy as it once was. Right?
Exactly.
Even like you were saying, like your dad is all the whites. I love that because Europe is the UK. It's very different, and having to say that is important because it recognizes that there is diversity even in even in that.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. And then
Exactly.
you add on top of that, so your story is you've just explained your name, but you're Hawaiian. You went to a particular school in Hawaii. I got to see a little bit of its gates. Tell us a little bit about the school that you went to, the kind of demographics that people expect to come out of there, and really what your background was like, bro.
Yeah, man. I'm really glad you got to engage with that, man, because Kamehameha is a really, really good school. I got to experience a lot, and understanding a lot, even in my own culture. And one of the funny things about it was, so I went to the Hawaiian immersion program first, um, from like preschool all the way to 8th grade. And the Hawaiian immersion program is basically like this renaissance of Hawaiian language, and you learned everything in the Hawaiian language. So I actually speak fluent Hawaiian because I grew up with the language only going to school. My
Wow, that's
entire
pretty
family,
awesome.
my entire family doesn't speak Hawaiian. None of my family members actually speak my language. I only know it because I went to the school. And so it's really funny because when I go home, I actually don't get to speak with anyone. Like I don't have a conversation in Hawaiian with anyone, especially within my family. And so for me to have that opportunity of going there, like it was a big deal, man, because I got to see and I got to experience so much of not just the language but also the culture itself, which is again where a lot of the dualism of the identity came from too, because we actually learned about the gods, we learned about the understanding of all this kind of stuff. And so it challenged my Christianity in so many ways, going through this. So when I went to Kamehameha, that school really reinforced so much of the language, but also allowed me the chance to actually see like there's another sort of stepping stone area. There's another sort of existence that we are challenged to be in, and this is where the Hawaiian community actually goes global, because the Kamehameha Schools has so much opportunities and so much funding that they've
Oh man.
allowed a lot of kids to go to prestigious schools, to prestigious colleges.
Yeah.
And
Now
so
I'm actually showing the website for it right now. So if you're watching along, I just want to give you kind of an idea, like what they look like. They've got quite a few You've got what, 3 campuses, or at least
three major campuses. Yeah,
Three
at
major
least three major
campuses.
campuses
One on
now.
Maui.
One on Maui, one on Oahu, which is the one that I went to, and then
Uh-huh.
one on the Big Island.
So it's the
Yeah.
KS Kapalama. Is that the one you went to?
Kapalama, yeah. That's the one. The one right
You like
in
the
the
way
middle,
I
bro.
said that. You like the way I said that.
Yeah. That's
So we're checking out your campus while you're talking.
yeah, dude. That campus is a city on a hill, bro. like,
Oh
like,
man.
if you're talking about Loma Linda, city on a hill, bro. This is literally a city on a hill. Like
Look at this.
when they built like every single one of my campuses, when you go to class, you can actually see like the entire leeward side of the island.
Wow.
Like walking through class, you actually see the entire leeward side, because every classroom faces out towards the leeward side. Yeah, it's beautiful, man. I seriously had so much. And so one thing to note about this is that it is a very prestigious school, but a lot of people actually thought when because I went there that I was kind of this elite class sort of kid. The thing is, I actually grew up with a single mom. My mom worked like 2 jobs for a lot of her life because she had to pay off so many bills, a lot of credit card debt, a lot of this stuff. And she worked her butt off, like trying to provide. My grandma lived with us. So we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with my grandma in one room, and my mom and I sharing the other room, almost my entire life. Eventually, I had my own space, but the space was the dining area. Like
Yeah.
we had turned the dining area into my bed space, and I slept outside in the dining area, and it wasn't like a big space. It was like, just like it was a dining room, like about maybe the size of my body, and then, and then the living room, which was the size of like maybe 4 of my bodies. And so my grandma in the morning would wake up, you know, do stuff, and I have to wake up along with her because this 2-bedroom apartment, which is like maybe 900 square feet at best, was what we lived in. And so a lot of people thought that because I went to Kamehameha, which is such a prestigious school, like every kid who went to Kamehameha was prestigious, was a part of the wealthy class. But the funny thing is, the majority of those kids actually are on scholarship when they go to Kamehameha. So many of those kids are going on financial aid by the school, built by the school, because of the kind of trust fund that they have. And so it's a powerfully built system. It has its nuances, it has its challenges, it has its corruption, like any kind of politics. I mean, the school's been around for over 100 years. And so, you know, when you have that 100-year marker, you typically have a little bit of corruption that comes with it. And so there were cases of corruption that came through it. But the school is built so that it can help the Hawaiian person, the Hawaiian kid. And that's so the way that it was set up was from a princess who decided that she wanted to educate Hawaiian kids for the world, so to be able to engage with the world, because she knew that if kids weren't going to be educated, then they were going to be, then they would be left behind by the rest of the world. They'd be taken advantage of. And so she thought to herself, like, we need to educate our children because we need them to be able to function and be able to to be challenged by the world, so that when they go out into the world, they can challenge the world. And I remember that was instilled in all of us. Every single kid that went through Kamehameha, they taught us, like, this is your mission. When you come to the school, you were given this spirit, and you were given this education because you are going to better the Hawaiian people over time. And I remember thinking, like, that's a huge burden, bro. Which eventually, when I was able to kind of tie the two together, like in the future, retrospectively, I'm looking back and I'm like, yeah, this is powerful, because this is actually what the gospel looks like. This is someone having a vision of the future, knowing that her people are going to be taken advantage of and thrown, you know, into the depths of the water, and the more people coming in, the more they're gonna just, like, you know, wreck the Hawaiian community. But if we are able to educate our people, if we are able to give them what it looks like to be able to exist in the world, like, this is going to be good for all of these people, man. Like, eventually these people are going to come back, and they're going to be able to support the Hawaiian community, the people in that area. And so I still, like, I think when I turned 30 and going into my early 30s, I was like, you know what, I really appreciated all of that, not just as a Hawaiian, but also as a Christian, because I could see the gospel, and the gospel's justice, the gospel's social justice existing in exactly that. And that's one of the ways that I was able to marry ministry and my culture together, was to see the social justice aspect of the gospel, and then see the social justice aspect of the Hawaiian people, and why. And then I was like, okay, this is what I'm called to. I'm called to the urban part. I'm called to be able to duplicate that spirit of what was given to me, that gift of the spirit that was given to me, so that I can kind of give that over to all of these other kids and all of these other, you know, people who are living at home, 2 or 3 jobs, not even able to afford a home. And so it's possible that when I go into ministry, like, I want to be able to duplicate that for somebody else as well.
That's the story of a marginalized or impoverished people.
It is,
so
man.
it's important to call out, because oftentimes when we think about Hawaii has its own stereotype or generalization that we have. You know, it's like a paradise, and it is. By the way, I just came back from there, and while I was working the whole time, I was also in Hawaii the whole time. Praise the Lord. So you know, there's this sense of paradise, but just like any other place in the world, there is lots of brokenness that needs to be mended. You know, there is poverty. There is a need for systemic healing that needs to happen there. And so that's what's created your particular identity, Pono. You know, you went to a very prestigious school who I have a friend who works there apparently, and he told me that they've got a ton of teachers. This is a high school. They've got high school, junior, middle school, and elementary, but they've got one of the most PhD staffed schools in all of the U.S. Like, that's how amazing the school is. You know, so it's very prestigious. And yet, in your personal home life, you've had to deal with a single mom home, a single parent home, low income, right? In urban life. So you have this, it's like the perfect storm. Everything kind of meets together. And out of that, you've kind of have to thresh out what your identity is. Like, who am I? Am I prestigious? Am I wealthy? Or am I, you know, in this space? Where do I go with my life? And how do I begin to find myself so that I can genuinely interact in the world confidently? How did you begin to find that, bro? I know you said you wrote a paper that, you know, where you really started thinking about who you were, but this kind of happens, you know, in your 30s. You're starting to really formulate who you are, finding your voice so that you can preach. That's a tricky one. As ministers, you may all know, you've had to figure out who you are. You've probably tried being Mark Finley or tried being, you know, T.D. Jakes and realized I'm neither of those human beings, right? Like, so how did you brandish that, bro?
Yeah, man, it's really funny because growing up, I mean, both in the non-denominational, when I was growing up, before I even met Adventism, I think I met Adventism like in my junior high days, and I didn't become I didn't get baptized Adventist until I was in like a freshman in high school, and so growing up, I remember seeing all of these preachers who were mimicking black preaching, and so the only kind of understanding that I knew of preaching was to preach like a black preacher. So I mean, what is it, C.D. Brooks? C.D. Brooks. So my uncle would always be playing after church. We'd go and go to the park, and he would be playing C.D. Brooks like on the replay, bro. And so again, this was the only voice of preaching that I could hear, was all of these black preachers and coming up. I had my pastor, my senior pastor at the time, who baptized me, was Pastor Walt Nelson, who was half white, half black. And so, but he's a black preacher. The dude preaches like strong, man. And so I remember coming in thinking that I had to be like the most powerful preacher with a big, huge voice. You know what I mean? And and so growing up, like, or going into ministry, I thought the same thing. I was like, okay, this is the preaching that I know. And then I started getting challenged in La Sierra. You know, Maury Jackson, a black preacher, or a black man, black professor, is now teaching me about all of these other nuances and different ways of preaching, but it's very academic. And I was like, wait, what? Like, how does this correlate? Because like now I'm teaching like academically. And so I have this format of preaching, but it doesn't sound like my voice now. Like, none of this sounds like anything that I know. And I remember Maury, like, in that class, because it was a homiletics class, it was a preaching class. And I remember Maury telling us, like, Pono, the thing that you have to know is preaching is the gospel through your own voice. And I was like, what? Okay, that both resonated with me and it challenged me. And the reason why was because when I thought of preaching now, I had to then understand who I was and what my voice was, because I still at that time I didn't realize who I was. I didn't know so much of my own identity. I mean, I'm just out of college going into my master's program, and I still have no clue what I'm doing. I mean, a lot of uh, um, um, scientists will say this is the dark night of the soul. You know what I mean? Like you're
Hmm.
still trying to figure everything out. Like it's a transition period, and so that's what I was going through. I was going through the transition. Who am I? What is it about me? What is ministry to me? You know what I mean? And so over time, I had to kind of just practice, experiment with different ways of preaching, experiment with different formats. But ultimately, I wanted to be able to preach without notes. I wanted to be able to preach without a written manuscript, even though manuscripts are really, really helpful for anyone who's preaching. Anyone who's
Right.
preaching should be writing manuscripts. But at the same time, like I wanted to be able to not be able to look at my manuscript the entire time, because it totally disengages me with people, with my congregation. And so I needed to be able to not maybe master that craft, because I don't think you can truly master preaching, but at the very least I needed to understand, like, okay, this is my voice, this is who I am. And it slowly came into play as I could hear myself speak more often. Like this is what I do. This is the tone that I actually like to speak at. Because a lot of people are saying, like, oh, you need to speak louder. And I was like, that's not my fault, man. That's the sound guy's fault. But then I started to yell, because I needed
Yeah.
to yell out. I needed to project out. And so then when I yell, I sound like I'm screaming at people. I'm not. I'm not.
Right.
That's not my vibe, man. I'm not a screamer. Like, I don't want to scream at you and say you need to read the Bible, bro. But it sounds like that because when I scream, when I project my voice, it sounds like that. And so I remember thinking to myself, like, oh my, like, okay, so that's another challenge. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, but so I eventually realized, man, as I kind of heard different people telling me different things about how they felt around me, as I could sense that different people, like, what they knew about me and how I engaged with them. I started to realize, like, the main thing for me was just to be a comforting presence to a lot of people, and at the same time, like, engaging with social justice, and especially the social justice of the Bible. um, I started to realize that, wait, I do have to be a little strong in this, but I don't have to be yelling at people. I don't have to be fire and
Mm.
brimstone. I don't have to
Mm.
be, being in and pointing fingers at somebody's face, because when I'm pointing fingers, like, it just doesn't look good, because I'm a large person. So when I'm pointing fingers at
Yeah.
somebody, like, it looks scary. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I'm not trying to scare somebody into engaging with the Bible and engaging with the gospel. I'm actually trying to give them this sense of, like, hey, this is what it is. And so, and coming from Hawaii too, like being a Hawaiian, I do have that tropical vibe. Like, I do have some vibe to me that's a little more chill, that's a little more relaxed. And that's just my personality as well. Like, I'm not the kind of person who's like trying to make things stressful. Uh,
Yeah.
I remember when I first moved out to LA, or moved out to La Sierra even, and I'm running sound, and our boy Steve Hemingway, he was helping me, like, he was next to me running the sound. He was like, bro, press, and I was like, bro, chill. So, and I lost that over time, because as you kind of grow up in LA, you start to be able to drive like everybody and do all of that kind of stuff, and you become.
Yep.
I mean, I kind of fancy myself as an LA native at this point. And so that came into play as well. You know what I mean? So then the stress, I could feel the stress of my preaching coming in. So I realized, you know what? I just need to, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I need to say. I do this. I study enough to be able to say what I need to say, so that when I say it, um, when I preach it, it's truly my voice. It's truly the chill part of me. It's truly like the strong part of me. So it's like this, again, this dualism that comes together, but it's blended into one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just as where I come from is such a melting pot. I like when I preach now, when my voice comes out, and it's not just preaching, but my voice altogether. It totally projects out my personality. And I
I
hope
mean,
that
that's
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 the case.
important.
But
It's got to come from that kind of a place.
yeah,
It's got
yeah,
to
yeah,
come from
yeah.
there. We're not saying, by the way, if you're watching along, you're a pastor or you're a young pastor, that you have to bear everything about you out in your preaching. Like, please
Nah,
don't.
man, no, no, no,
Some
no,
of
no.
that stuff you got to keep at home. Keep it at home. That's all right. That's what we're talking about. And obviously, you finding a preaching style is imperative. Like, of course, like everyone's got to find a style that fits them, that works. What we're talking about is really the identity of who you are as a person, making sure that stays centered. You can find a preaching style that you're good at, that you like, that works for you, but finding your self-identity and being centered there, that has to be primary. Which means having to figure out who you are, like working through some of your own angst, working through some of your own stuff, your own struggles, your own insecurities. Because guess what? When you're speaking out and you have an insecurity, it becomes blaringly obvious to everybody. The harder you try to hide that. Now, the more transparent you become about that thing, the more humble you are about that particular thing, the more forgiving, the more okay people are with it. But the more you try to hide it, the more it becomes like, this person's got this, particular thing about them. So like figuring out who you are. If you're still with us, I want you to type into the comments who your favorite speaker is. Do you have a preacher or pastor you just love listening to? Drop them in here. I want to hear who it is, man. And maybe it might spur us to go catch some of their sermons, because I love catching sermons. When preaching is good,
bro.
it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Pono, who's one of your favorites that you like to listen to on your off day, where you're just like, man, I need to get inspired? Do you have one out there?
Bro, you know what? This is the crazy part. Well, you are one of them.
Stop it.
No, I mean that. The other
Love
person
you.
that I still listen a lot to is Sam Lenore. Sam is still my pastor in so many different ways, and I definitely love to watch that dude every now and then. But the truth of the matter is, though, is I actually watch TED Talks way more
TED Talks
now.
are good.
So the reason why is because I like to sort of piece together some of the ways that they present something. So if they're cracking a joke, but there's something in there, and the way that they deliver the joke that's actually important. And TED Talks, like the way they choose very, very amazing speakers, especially the actual TEDx stuff, not the actual TED Talk stuff, not the TEDx stuff that they do with other universities and all that kind of stuff. Like,
right.
Those are good too, but I know when they actually do the main TED conventions, like those speakers are the top of the line within the world. And so what I realized was this is the other reason why too. I realized actually that the millennial generation especially, and the possible Gen Z communication style is very similar to what, or rather the TED Talks are actually in line with their way of speaking and their way of communicating. And so that's when I realized, like, okay, these are some of the ways that I'm going to actually listen to the most. And it actually shows a little bit where I've kind of toned down the inspirational kind of characteristic of like trying to force inspiration, and rather just letting the content itself, letting the Bible itself be the inspiration.
That's good.
So it helped me a lot.
Good.
But again, it's really just my own personal style. That's the style that I ended up adopting. It's still my voice, but still my identity. But I took the style to help it to project my identity well. I think the other part that a lot of people don't realize too is that your identity also helps you choose your positionings, or like work towards the churches that you want to work for, or work towards the communities that you want to work for. In the beginning, we kind of just choose whatever comes our way, like trying to get into whatever conference or whatever church, you know what I mean? But I remember we had a conversation like maybe 3-4 years ago, when I was considering becoming a senior pastor, kind of moving up from the youth ministry over to something else. And it wasn't just the senior role, it was just something I felt that I was getting this itch of like moving forward. And it's possible that youth ministry, if it was in youth ministry, it had to be in youth ministry in some other capacity or, some way. But I remember thinking about moving forward and really considering all of the different options that were coming my way. And I remember the thing that you said to me was you need to know what your ministry is. Because if you don't know what your ministry is, there's ministry all over the place. Like life itself is ministry, but you need to know what you are called to specifically. Because if you know what you're called to, then you can say no to the right things. And I was like, oh, this is good, bro. Like, so it really challenged me. And so when I considered my identity and who I was, where I came from, the things that I understand, the people that I understand, I realized actually that, yeah, I know my urban community even more than anything else. Like, I know what urban life looks like. I know what living in that small home, that tiny home with a parent that has to work so often and so much. I know what drug addictions look like and how drug addictions affect families. I know what a lot of this stuff looks like because that's where I came from. I came from those communities. I know what gang violence looks like because I grew up in the ghettos of Hawaii. Like, and people don't realize that, yeah, there are ghettos.
People don't realize
and
it.
gang violence in Hawaii, man. I mean, those Samoans don't mess around, bro. And when you put Samoans and Filipinos who are like aggressive at each other, bro, it doesn't look good. You know what I mean?
No.
So I know that kind of community, and when I realized where I came from and how that affected me, how that shaped me, I was able to say no to positions that would have been great, that would have been very loving on my wife and I, very good in so many ways, but I was able to say no to those things because I knew that if I went there, I wouldn't truly feel like I'm giving all of me. And so that's when I was able to say, like, okay, I'm going to say yes to this, but I'm going to say no to that. And so I think that helps people when, for a lot of us pastors, for a lot of us leaders, and young adults in general who are trying to figure out their jobs. Like, when you understand your mission or your calling in life, it's really easy for you to say no to the right things. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so,
Oh, that's good. That's good. I think that was the golden spot right there. We're coming to the 5 o'clock marker already, but it's so important that you know who you are, where you come from, and be okay with that. Like, settling your spirit about what formed you as a person will help you find the purpose that God has for you in your life. I mean, and Pono had some great options in his, and he landed where he was, not because it was the most prestigious or the most comfortable position, but it was going to be the position where his identity could be most profoundly used and related to. So he took on a ministry that God called him to. Maybe your situation is you're a student in college. Maybe you're at your job. Maybe you're just trying to figure out like who your life partner is. All these things become more clear, and they don't get easier in the sense that like, oh, this is simple now. They become easier in the sense that like I'm committed. I see where I need to be when you know yourself better. And that doesn't mean all of a sudden you can't be on TikTok because you're 50 or because you can't be on Facebook because you're in your teens. No, like those are spaces by which we move in and out of, styles that we move through. But who you are in your identity is important because you need to know who you are. You need to know what your insecurities are, where your shortcomings are. You need to know like what triggers you, and you need to be okay with those kinds of things. You need to be all right with that and know that God's going to use it. I want to show you a quick video that Pono made me do. Thanks a lot, Pono, for this. This is he said, yeah, you got to do a TikTok. And so I did a TikTok. But I want you to
boom.
Look at this. Look
Thank
at
you
this.
for that amazing message, Pastor Tim, reminding us that God likes us. That's right. He likes you. You.
This was a-
and you back there. He likes us.
Now,
even when we feel
I don't know
like
if this
that
is on
he's
TikTok.
alone. Maybe we feel like
I
other people
don't think it
like
is.
us. Maybe we feel
No,
like
I took it down
we're
immediately.
scared of us. No one is here for us. But don't you forget that God
Look
likes
at,
you.
as you can
Pastor
tell,
Tim,
I'm
we
a
look forward to the
novice. I
message
don't know
you're
what to
gonna
do
bring
on
us
TikTok.
tomorrow.
I use some
Let's
cheesy
pray it out, my friends,
transitions.
and then I'll catch up with you all tomorrow.
This is what happens when you let someone like me be in charge of that. TikTok is not my space, but it doesn't mean I can't speak into that space.
Yeah.
Right?
Man. Yep.
Yeah, so things like that. I mean, like, it's not that you cannot be on a platform or have a certain preaching style or do a certain thing. It's a matter of owning your identity and who you are in each one of those spaces. When it comes to preaching, own who you are. Know who you are. Be that, you know? Don D's.
That's what I'm talking about, bro.
Don is the man because he and Pono are for real, like, TikTok master flexes. They're beasts at this kind of stuff. So I showed mine because mine is like dorky and like, you know, because I'm an old man, I don't know how to do it. But I can I can be me even on that particular platform. You know, that's the whole point. Learning to figure out who you are and being okay with that.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, you know, it's really funny because although we're talking about ministry, and we, you know, talking about ministry in light of the identity, like it actually applies to any kind of work, any kind of calling. And I do believe that one thing I want to, like, I think people would need to understand is that ministry is all of life. Like when you are engaging with anyone positively, or when you are engaging with anyone and sort of challenging for the good, you know what I mean? Like for us to be better community members, we are doing ministry. And so I think it is important for us to recognize like who we are in light of that, in our jobs, in the things that we do, in careers. Like when we choose these things, that's why for the student, like it's really important to wrestle with these things. And also at the same time, be gracious, man. It's really important to be gracious to yourself because you're not going to find, I'm still trying to find so much of me. I'm still trying to understand who I am in light of all of this. And so it is important to recognize the universal and cosmological aspect of what ministry actually is, that it goes beyond just Christianity. It goes into the world everywhere.
And you know what? Your identity is going to change again really soon when you have that baby.
Truly is,
and
man.
I know Kevin, Don D's on here. They all can speak to that, man. Like, you think you know stuff and you're like proud of what you've achieved, and then you have this little being, and you're going to find a new sense of elation and pride and love and gratitude and humility and frustration, right?
Yeah,
because our identities are constantly growing. Every time we add a different piece of our experiences to us, it makes us different and new and beautiful people. And you got to speak from that place. You got to be able to reach into there and speak from that place. My peoples out there, you're all phenomenal. Thanks for joining us. If you watch this on the bypass, thank you for watching it. Drop a comment, drop a like. And, you know, we didn't even get a chance to talk about it because I wanted to show you our Thrive video. But Thrive starts May 16th to 23. You got to jump in there. We're going to start posting and adverting and let you know more about it. Most likely one of the collaborative churches that you might be in or close to will be streaming it from their platforms. So it'll be everywhere. It's going to be great. Have a good time. Enjoy it with us this next week. John De La Paz, love to you, bro. You get a ding from us. You get a hello from us. Not that one. You get that, John, because you're on here late.
What is
But we're out of here, my friends. Pono, any lasting words for our peoples before we sign out?
Yeah, man. I just appreciate so much of the ways that we've been able to collaborate on this stuff, man. So if anybody needs any, if you want to call me, ask me questions about any of the things that I do in ministry altogether, feel free to call me up.
Hit my dude up, and we're gonna be coming on here. John is winning for the best late incoming. You win, John. But Pono and I are going to come on a little more often here in the future and just like kind of talk about and talk through life and talk about One House Ministries. We're going to be inviting more of our church ministries to come on and share some of the stuff they're doing in this next year. It's going to be a bit of our pivot. Of course, we're still going to keep inviting individuals and having people share their inspirational stories about things that they're doing in the world, like Dr. Ricardo Graham next week. Like how I worked that in. But we want to get real local with some of our churches and some of the stuff our young adults are doing out there, like John's team and Don D's and Kev and all of you guys out there here in the SoCal lands. So thanks, everybody. Until next Tuesday, we invite you to stay safe, be good, and do some inspiring things in this world by being yourself.
Yeah, man.
All right. Peace.